Hi everyone, this is Ms. Jenny OT, and this is part 3 of our sensory integration assessment series, and we are continuing with the tactile system. This week we will be talking about the registration and discrimination of tactile input. So last week we talked about the modulation of tactile input, which results in things like tactile defensiveness, and this week we're talking about sensory registration and discrimination of tactile input, which will lead, especially if you work in the school district, it will really lead to delayed fine motor skills and problems manipulating objects and tool use. And so it's very important for us to take a closer look at this system, or at least the registration discrimination piece of it. I think a lot of school-based therapists miss this part of the assessment. We usually only assess the tactile defensive part, but the result of delayed fine motor skills is really due to the registration and discrimination of tactile input, or difficulty with that. So how do I go about assessing this if I'm not using some sort of like standardized assessment? So what I'm going to take a look at is I'm going to check their localization of touch and their stereognosis first. So are they able to know where they've been touched, and is it accurate? So I just usually touch the child like somewhere on their hand or somewhere on their forearm and see, are they able to feel it? Are they able to know where I touch them? Is it like really, really off? I'm touching them on the wrist and they think I just touched them on the thumb. So that's something to take a look at. And then the next part is stereognosis. So this is really important to assess, because if a child is having difficulty manipulating an object and really understanding what that object feels like and is without their vision, they're really not feeling that object, and that will lead to difficulties with their fine motor skills. So there are a lot of fun stereognosis games out there that you can use as part of the assessment. And I've noticed students love playing with it, playing the games. Whether they're good at it or not good at stereognosis, they seem to really just love playing. So this is a great way to complete this part of the assessment using something that's really fun for kids. And I definitely think this is very, 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 very important to assess, because you will see that students who struggle with stereognosis and just really manipulating that object, knowing what it is, it does definitely influence their manipulation of objects and their grasp. And then the next thing I like to take a look at is I like to take a look at just a fine motor art project. So I like to do this as a functional way for me to see if, the child can draw something and then maybe like cut it out, paste it together. So I'm looking at sequencing, I'm looking at visual motor skills, I'm looking at their ability to manipulate, scissors, pencils or crayons, glue. So I'm getting all of that within just a functional art project. So obviously we are also going to be doing standardized assessments as well. So you will be able to see, a child's ability to draw, like with their visual motor skills from the VMI or from the BOT2 or from the MFUN. You'll get cutting types of activities from those standardized tests as well. But I just really like to look at more of a functional project. So it is similar to what they would be doing in the classroom. And then you can see, like, what are they struggling with? Is it the sequencing part? Is it, like putting the pieces together, actually manipulating the objects? You'll see all of that with the art project. And additionally, I really wanted to talk about somatodyspraxia. So this is a biggie thing to talk about because difficulty with registration discrimination of tactile input may lead to somatodyspraxia, right? So the definition of somatodyspraxia is inefficient tactile and proprioceptive processing that leads to difficulty learning a simple task. So these are the students that have difficulty with their motor planning, right? Like, so they have difficulty learning how to grasp an object. So that's why you'll see pencil grasp issues. They have difficulty maybe using scissors and really figuring all that out. And these are also the students that they need a lot of repetition in order to learn these motor plans. So it's not that they aren't able to learn it, but the somatodyspraxia causes difficulty learning it quickly, right? So they need a lot of repetition in order to learn these tasks. And somatodyspraxia really is a body scheme problem. So in the nervous system with somatodyspraxia, you're not integrating or adequately processing tactile and proprioceptive input. So it is both of those things. So it's inefficient tactile and proprioceptive processing that results in an inadequate somatosensory homunculus in the parietal lobe. So, this is why students with somatodyspraxia have difficulty with their fine motor skills and manipulating objects. It's because this somatosensory homunculus is already inadequate, right? It's not processing the things like, like, where is my hand? How do I feel, items on my body? So that's going to influence their fine motor skills and their manipulation. So, and I did want to mention, so this over here, these are the things that you will see, if you're a school-based therapist, these are the things that you will see that are going to be affected, right? So kids with somatodyspraxia are going to have difficulty manipulating objects that they are not familiar with. They're going to have a difficult time learning grasp initially. They're going to have a difficult time maybe with using scissors and just motor planning that whole piece. And the big thing is kids with somatodyspraxia really have a hard time with their ADLs. So they will have a difficult time putting on their socks, putting on their shoes, putting on their jacket, or taking it off, because they don't know where their body is in relation to, other pieces. And so it's just difficult for them to do that whole motor plan of all of those activities. So in addition to doing your standardized testing, doing some of these, stereognosis, localization of touch, what else can you do to kind of determine whether a child has somatodyspraxia? So some of these clinical observations are important for you to test out to see if your hypothesis that this child might have somatodyspraxia is correct. So you would check their supine flexion, because kids with somatodyspraxia have a very, very difficult time getting into that position and then also maintaining it. And then you also want to take a look at diadochokinesis. Students will have a difficult time just, doing that movement of the alternating, forward, backward of the forearms. And it won't be like smooth and fluid. Like, you'll see that it's difficult for them to do. They might I call it like kind of like slappy with their ability to rotate their forearms. It just doesn't qualitatively look nice. And then sequential finger touching is important to take a look at. So that's their ability to touch their thumb to each of their fingers, and usually you want them to do it without vision, right? So you want to see, like, do they know where their fingers are? Can they easily, touch their thumb to each of their fingers without the use of vision? So students with somatodyspraxia will need to look at their hand in order for them to complete this task, because they don't know where their thumb is compared to where the other fingers are, right? Because of that inadequate somatosensory homunculus again. And the last clinical observation that might be related to somatodyspraxia is the finger to nose clinical observation. So with this, you will see that students will sort of miss their finger to their nose. They might be touching like all over, different parts of the nose instead of just the tip of the nose. It might look like the sequencing piece of it won't look nice and fluid. It might be very deliberate too, where they're going to go slow and really like it takes them a lot of time to really touch their nose instead of just doing it automatically, right? Because once again, if you have an inadequate somatosensory homunculus, your ability to know where your body is isn't great, right? So it's just much slower, more deliberate, just might take some time, or just isn't smooth and fluid. So you're really looking at the quality of the actions. So that's the end of the sensory registration and discrimination of tactile input, and what areas you're going to look at, and what might be the difficulties that you see if this is a difficult thing for a child. So I hope you enjoyed this part of the series. If you have any questions, you can contact me at my email at jnipediatricot@gmail.com if you have any questions. And then I will see you guys next week for either vestibular or proprioceptive processing. If there's one or the other that you're more interested in, you can DM me or comment, and we can start with one of those next week. Okay, have a great day, guys.